Good afternoon. It is September 18th, Friday afternoon here, and we're going to be talking about the tropics here. As always, these thoughts are mine alone, and in making decisions regarding each of our systems, please refer to the National Hurricane Center, your local weather office, and your local authorities for all the latest information regarding your area. We have a lot to talk about here. We're only going to be talking about two of these systems, but we have a very busy Atlantic today. We have Tropical Depression 22 here. We have Major Hurricane Teddy. We have Tropical Storm Wilfred. We have another area of interest here. We have the remnants of Paulette in the far northeastern Atlantic that may be able to regenerate down here. And we have off your screen here subtropical storm Alpha making landfall on Portugal, which is definitely something that I did not expect going into the season, but you never know with the season. So we're going to be talking about Tropical Depression 22 here and Major Hurricane Teddy, both of which are immediate threats to land. Tropical Depression 22 may actually get designated shortly after this video as a tropical storm, and that would be Beta. If we look at the storm here, we can tell that the storm is elongated and not very organized right now, and that has kind of been the story of this storm so far. We have a very elliptical circulation here that's wrapping into a tighter area of vorticity right in here. Generally not a good sign for any quick strengthening here, although its upper level environment is very favorable. It is being strung out, and this is for a number of reasons here. We have an upper level trough here that is dug into Texas here and has provided upper level and mid level flow that has kind of strung out the moisture field. Here you can really see that on this water vapor shot. You can see this kind of elongated oval shaped moisture field here. And typically when a storm is trying to consolidate, you want the moisture field to be a little more organized and more circular so the storm can pull in that moist air more efficiently. And so this is not a very strong circulation, so it's not been able to really pull in this moisture as much, and the moisture being elongated has prevented the mid-level circulation from becoming very strong. And so that has allowed for the storm to kind of just sit at around 30 to 35 knots, and it has not substantially strengthened. This, however, will change as this upper level trough here is going to move out and is not going to take 22 with it. 22 is going to sit around here and kind of just meander for the next several days. And we see this on the 5-day cone. I believe this is 22 here. You can see that it initially is brought to the northeast, but as that trough that we mentioned here gets out and no longer is influencing the storm, you can see that kind of bend back to the west. And this is going to take a while here to really do all of this motion. As you can see, this is 7 p.m. Saturday when it turns to the west, and it does not stop its westward motion until 7 a.m. Monday here. This is a very long time for the system to do something and be able to strengthen here, as this environment that it will be left behind and will be very favorable. If we look at the moisture field first, you can see that the strung out, this is Tropical Depression 22 here. You can see the strung outedness of the moisture field here, and the GFS continues this, and you see where the trough is here, this area of dry air that's getting punched down. And this dry air may inhibit short-term intensification for a little bit here, as this is going to likely ingest some dry air as this trough presses on, and you can see all this dry air off in Texas here. But over time, since this is not in a very sheared upper level environment, this is actually able to consolidate quite a bit, and since it is not moving fast, it will have a lot of time to really get this going and be able to make itself a more moist environment. And you can see that the GFS actually brings us to a minimal hurricane here into South Texas, but it does something else. It also turns it back to the north, and this actually on this particular GFS run, it trails the entire Texas coast for about 3 days and does not move very fast. You can see this. This is not moving fast at all. This is 3 days out right here. This is where it is. And then if we go 3 more days out to 6 days, this is where it ends up. So this is going to be moving very, very slowly here. GFS and the European model both agree on this. And if we can, why this is worrying is because if we look at the analysis here for the GFS, this is where the trough is here. You can see that, and this kind of shearing flow off to the north and east here, this leaves, and it is replaced by a generally light area of upper level winds here, and this is very favorable for intensification. And the only thing that would be really inhibiting this is the dry air that is coming off of the trough as it exits. And once it is able to mix out this dry air, it really depends on how long that takes, this could be able to intensify rather quickly, as this is still going to be in a very favorable environment for several days here. And this, there's divergent flow off to the north here, and that would allow for a polar outflow channel to possibly develop, and this could potentially be something that is a little stronger than what the models currently suggest. That being said, there's still a lot of time for this to happen. As you can see, this is approaching the Texas coast 3 days from now, but it will be in the area for quite a while. We'll have, be dealing with a lot of rain here regardless, and as this slowly moves up the Texas coast, and the reason that is moving up the Texas coast, if we look at the mid-level flow, I have that somewhere, you can see that the mid-level flow initially is out of the south, and you have a weak mid-level ridge here that is going to develop here over Texas and Arkansas here. This is where it is, and this is the mid-level ridge, and we're going to see this ridge develop, and this is going to generally guide the storm to the west, but very slowly, because this flow is not particularly strong. This is not a very powerful ridge that is going to develop, and this actually weakens quite a bit. And so the steering flow, generally speaking, is not very strong, but you can see there's another mid-level ridge here that develops over the eastern Gulf and generally pushes this northward. This flow will begin to take over, and we may have another shortwave trough here that comes in. You can see this as it begins to kind of just meander due to this ridge that is now the flow is largely out of the southwest and is able to trail the entire Texas coast, and we have another shortwave in here that is not very strong but is able to lift it out. And keep in mind, this is 6 days away from happening, and we're going to be dealing with the system for possibly a week here, and this will be moving very, very slowly. And the error with slower storms is harder to really get pinned down, and so it may come on shore, it may not come on shore during its interaction with South Texas or even the upper Texas coast here. But regardless, if you're on the entire upper Texas coast here all the way to the southwest Louisiana coast here, you need to be watching this, as this will be around for a while, and regardless of how strong this gets, this will obviously be dropping a lot of rain. So definitely have this on your radar as this kind of just very slowly approaches the Gulf Coast. Again, if we look at the 5-day cone here, this is not going to be moving fast. It moves from here to here on the 5-day cone, and this is 5 days of movement. So this is not moving very fast. You have a lot of time to really prepare for this, and have a plan in place here if you're along the entire Texas coast here, and be aware that this could be bringing a lot of flooding to your area, potentially if the rainfall does get on shore here and the storm is a little closer. Again, it's really hard to predict where exactly the storm may be when it is near the Texas coast. We still have a few days for this to really get over here, but let me just tell you, it is not moving fast at all. This is going to be a very slow moving storm, and that is going to be the main story with this for a while. So please do be wary of flooding, and if this is able to intensify a little more than the current hurricane forecast that the National Hurricane Center has, do be aware of this. All right, we're going to go back to the tropical Atlantic here. We're going to talk about Major Hurricane Teddy here. If we look at the satellite shot here, this is a broad shot, we can see Bermuda here, and Teddy down here is generally moving off to the northwest. And the trend for the past couple of days has been that Teddy actually moves towards Bermuda, but then dodges it to the east here. And this has been the trend on most of the models. And this is due to an interaction with an upper level low. You can see on the milky white cirrus clouds here, the curved flow to the south, and this is developing an upper level trough here that Teddy will break, and it will turn the flow generally out of the southwest, or out of the southeast, and you can see this on the GFS model. If we look forward here, we can't see the upper level trough on this one, but you can tell this ridging breaks down here to the north of Teddy, and this ridging will continue to break down, and you can see this other upper level trough here that is in New England and Atlantic Canada here. And this actually digs down and helps pivot Teddy initially off to the northeast and then around the system and then back to the north here. And that's pretty much the track that it takes on this model run. And the problem is that for Teddy here, depending on the intensity of the storm here, this is likely to still be a powerful hurricane on approach or past Bermuda here, but it moves very slowly through this region, and this region has very, very cold water, so this may decay the storm rather quickly, and this may not be as huge of a threat to Atlantic Canada as expected if the hurricane was moving a little faster here and coming in really quickly, because it wouldn't have time to decay. But good news, at least a little bit of a good piece of good news, is that it will likely be moving pretty slow towards Atlantic Canada here, and so we'll have time to decay before impacts become too serious, as it will likely still be a hurricane, but definitely not something that is terrible regardless. Very rare for Atlantic Canada or Maine or New England really to get something this strong, as Teddy is a very unique storm. This would be a very unique approach to Atlantic Canada after getting further to the east and then pivoting back to the north and west. This is not going to go all the way back into New England here. That forecast is unlikely at this point, because the upper level trough here would have to be much stronger than Teddy in order to do that and kind of pivot Teddy around and all the way into the northeast. That is less likely right now. And the GFS model has come into agreement with the European model about what exactly happens here. We have this upper level trough that rotates Teddy up into the north, but it ultimately gets absorbed into Teddy's overall mid-level presence, and the storm becomes a powerful extratropical cyclone and moves off into the polar jet stream, and impacts will be likely here along the Atlantic Canada coastline here. And you need to be watching this, especially if you are in Atlantic Canada and if you are in Bermuda still here. This still is pretty close. This is Teddy, and you're in Bermuda, you're right here. So you're pretty close to where Teddy is going to be. So definitely do not take this lightly. This is still too close for comfort, in my opinion, to really kind of let your guard down here. But the trend has generally been away from Bermuda at this point. If you look at the 5-day cone, it exemplifies this motion. You can see it remains a major hurricane all the way upon approach to Bermuda, and then pivots back to the northeast before just generally moving off to the north here. And thankfully Bermuda is out of the cone, but not out of the area of impact here. As you can see, our hurricane is very, very large and will likely become larger as it gains latitude here. So you will definitely be dealing with at least tropical storm force winds, maybe some hurricane force winds if it does take this western part of the track here. So if you're in Bermuda, you do need to be watching this, as this does come pretty close on some of the model runs here, but it is definitely further away than a direct hit. But the bad news is for Atlantic Canada here, you will likely be dealing with a decaying hurricane, Teddy, that may have a very large wind field here, a potentially very large hurricane force wind field along with a very large tropical storm force wind field. So this will likely be impacting the entirety of Atlantic Canada, even into Newfoundland. This could be impacting that region as well. Just because you're outside of the cone doesn't mean you're outside of the area of impact, especially with a larger hurricane here. So please do be preparing accordingly. This is still 4 days out, and we still have a little bit of time to watch this before it does impact Atlantic Canada, and we're talking about Sunday where it approaches Bermuda. So we're still a couple days out from really seeing this through. And there's still a lot of time for this forecast to possibly change, but the general idea is that this does pivot around the upper level trough and kind of just move north into the Atlantic Canada coastline here. So please do be prepared for that. That is all. We have a very busy Atlantic, I know. This is insane. And we may talk about Wilfred and the other area of interest if they do indeed become a threat down the line, and we could be talking about some frontal developments here that may occur depending on what does happen with our troughs that are moving through here. We may, have a branch of a front here come off and develop into something. Maybe. You never know. Those are really hard to predict in advance. So that is all for now. Have a good evening, and thanks for watching.